Hi, I'm Pete Kenyon, one of the co-founders of Amplifi and a partner at Crips, and I am very happy to be joined for this episode of the Amplifi Collective podcast by Alex Green, who is the CEO of the Royal Tunbridge Wells Together bid. Alex, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So before we start, what's a bid?
So a bid is a business improvement district, and there's about 350 of them around the country. They've been going around 20 years, but whilst they're all very different, at their core, they're all about supporting the business community, funded by the local business community, supporting the business community. So we could spend an hour with me explaining the whole details of what we do, but just as a quick recap, we got three core themes. One is around supporting, which is around trying to provide tangible benefits to businesses, whether that's grants, whether that's statistics, whether that's recruitment support, networking, training, conferences, a whole wide range of stuff. We do promoting, which is all around trying to promote the area around them and the town to generate customers. So we have tourist campaigns, inward investment campaigns, as well as funding events ourselves, so running events ourselves and funding events for others. And then lastly, we do a whole theme around enhancing the area around the businesses where they're based. So we do street cleaning, we do street lighting, Christmas lights, we do safety campaigns, we do a whole range of stuff, including trying to support wider partnerships where there's potentially other people best placed to deliver what we think is important, in which case we've got Amplifi, and so we're really pleased to support it.
Thank you. You've been incredibly supportive, and we'll talk about how in a minute, but why are you interested in sustainability? What is it about sustainability that puts it so high up on your agenda as a bid?
So I just think ultimately it's absolutely key. So obviously, if you want to survive in the medium long term, you need to be sustainable, and that has various sort of meanings to it. But if businesses want to care about the future, then they need to be sustainable. So we want to help them. And I think one of the key difficulties of business, particularly at the moment where everyone seems to be struggling a little bit more than they might like to, is it's sometimes hard to find the time to really dedicate the resources to that objective, which is maybe slightly more medium term or slightly more strategic. And bids have an opportunity to kind of pull people together and bring that resource together in a way that can help them make that journey to be more sustainable.
And how have you been involved in Amplifi so far?
Yep. So the bid got involved with Amplifi just before I started last year, with our chair bringing us in, and we became one of the founding members. And through that, and this year, we've continued to pay that membership fee of a couple of $1,000 a year. But we've also really thought it's important to add more to that. And so last year we managed to, when we had a slightly bit of excess funds, put in an investment of £20,000. This year we've done another 10,000. Our intention is to keep providing additional subsidies so we can help this, what is a great initiative, really deliver the maximum we can do and support those objectives. And obviously the finance is a major one, but obviously the promotion, the networking, the kind of connecting people into it and trying to recruit more people into it is also just as important, I think.
And what's your expectation in because you've been a huge influence on our ability to do what we've done. What's your expectation from Amplifi for that? The month you put £34,000 in, which has allowed us to do a lot of things we would not have been able to do. What do you expect from us?
So it's I think Amplifi's got an incredible opportunity that you can't necessarily do by yourself. So obviously, so as I see it, one of the major parts of Amplifi is about sharing knowledge and working together collaboratively. And so it's about having a bigger benefit than people working individually. So one of the things is that you can learn from other people. Someone else come up with a great idea, you can get that. I think sometimes by working in a group, you can come up with better ideas about how things you might be able to deliver, which would be better all around. There's an opportunity to just share the knowledge that you've benefited. So if you really care about the environment and sustainability, that it's not just about what you can get, it's about how you can make everyone as sustainable as possible. There's a major lobbying opportunity that if you are one voice, one group of people, if you've got 20 hospitality venues in the town all pushing a waste contractor to deliver in a certain way, then that adds more weight. So fundamentally, it's about working together to kind of have a stronger impact so they can be more impactful and be able to develop more quickly in terms of their sustainability.
And what are you hearing from your members about your participation in Amplifi? Because clearly that's a reasonable amount of money you've provided us. What does it mean to your members that you're being as involved in Amplifi as you are?
I think it's really crucial. I think they're really appreciating it. Obviously, Amplifi is still in its early days, and pretty certain it's still the only one of its kind in the country, this sort of business partnership of all working together in a slightly more holistic fashion, or slightly more altruistic fashion maybe, to deliver what is good for the planet as well as what's good for businesses directly. So it's going to take time for measures to increase, but I think they really appreciated it. I think they really see the opportunity of kind of working together and kind of sharing that knowledge and gaining expertise. And specifically, one of the key areas we've been putting the money for is to help with the Net Zero Now, which I'm sure you could explain better than I could, but is all around trying to help those businesses gain a specific opportunity to learn how their emissions are being generated and how that's calculated, how they can change that, and provide them with real detailed action plans. So it's not just talk, but and that's one of the key things for me. And from the beginning, we don't want to just be exploring ideas, but actually, what can we get done? What can we do going forwards? And I think that the partnership with Net Zero Now is really provides an opportunity to take that forward.
Yeah, I think it's worth talking about that a little bit more. So we talk in another podcast a bit more about Net Zero Now, but your funding has literally supported the subsidy of the Net Zero Now process to allow us to go to all members and offer to pay up to 50% of the costs of the Net Zero Now carbon measurement process. So without that funding, we have sponsorship from our sponsors. All the details of them are all on our website, and we're incredibly grateful for them. And that's allowed us to create a brand and a website.
Yeah.
But to subsidise the Net Zero Now process, we simply couldn't have done that without the bid.
And that's what we wanted to try and provide an opportunity to do a slightly more concrete initiative that I think the sector leads, and having that opportunity to connect and work together is great. But having that slightly more data-led approach where you can really understand what you're doing will work with and reinforce the natural way of which is working around sector leads. So individuals can learn specific initiatives and test that and try that out and be able to tangibly say how much their success has been delivered, which then feeds that back in and provides a real sort of value and recognition that one of the things I could have said before is part of being part of Amplifi. It's not just about the information sharing. It's also almost about just setting a driver for yourself. That it's, I think, very easy when you're trying to struggle from one day to the next to make sure you find the time to push on these slightly more medium term or slightly less urgent, maybe, or instant day-to-day approach for your business. And if you've got this meeting every 6 weeks, if you've got this partnership, if you've got this commitment, if you've got this testing going on, it provides that kind of momentum to help you go. And that's, I think, one of the really exciting things about Amplifi is it's kind of testing and measuring the whole sector with itself. So obviously it's different from one sector to the next. Hospitality is going to have to deal with carbon emissions very differently from retail compared to professional services. So having them all in the same group is not necessarily as useful, but where you, by splitting them out individually into those specific sectors, they can really benchmark against each other in a way that's kind of quite constructive.
Alex, one of the things that we need to kind of work on together, and I'm interested in your views as to how we do that. Clearly, you have many more members than are joined up with Amplifi. How can Amplifi help your members who haven't yet signed up with Amplifi? What can we do for them, and how do we engage better with them?
Yeah, so bids are very different across the whole country. The bid that we are is quite a general bid. That's the best way of putting it, in that we've got almost 650 members. We've got a wide geography, a wide sector basis. So sometimes you might have a bid which focuses on a business park. Sometimes you'll have a bid which focuses on accommodation in a particular sector. But ours is very diverse. And so there will always be a challenge in that. So approximately half of our bid members, I'd assume, would be large chains. And when you're talking about M&S and Boots and Sainsbury's, they are likely to be developing this approach from some sort of headquarters basis. It's not to say they can't be involved, and I very much be delighted and welcome them all to be, and we have relationships with that, and we'll try and encourage them to be more involved with Amplifi. But I think it will, to some extent, some of those will be harder to sort of tie in to what is, at the moment at least, a more local initiative. But I'm really excited about the potential of Amplifi spreading elsewhere. But for those which are independent or which are slightly smaller organizations, or sort of a few hundred employees or lower, I think it's a case of building momentum. As I said, a lot of them are struggling in this time of age. We've had a number of different economic crises and inflationary increases and energy costs, etc. But as more and more people do it, as more people see the benefit, and that again, that comes back to the net zero now, being able to measure and say, I went from this to this, shows a real opportunity to demonstrate that success. And then the more knowledge that gets built up, the better and better, or the more impactful Amplify can be, because then anyone that comes in year 2 or year 3, they're not starting from scratch. They start building on all of the knowledge and the lobbying and the efforts that have gone in the prior year. So I think it's just something which is going to continue to grow and expand. And that's what's exciting, and that's what we'll be happy to help push.
What you speak to your members regularly. What are the main challenges that you see for those businesses in developing accelerating their sustainability journeys?
Ooh. So there's, I think, a variety of aspects that, like, partly a key thing is time. One of the sides is money, and I think there is an expectation that you have to spend a lot of money to do this. Mm-hmm. And in some respects, if you want to convert to generating your own power and putting solar panels on the roof or wind turbine, that does cost money to buy. Mm. But also it can save you money in sort of whether it's through energy generation or through if you move paperless, that might involve some initial effort of buying digital equipment, but then it saves you on paper storage or sort of or continuous purchasing of it. So I think there are, cost is one implication, but I think that can be mitigated, and I'll come back to some of the reasons and benefits to why we should do it. But I think part of it is uncertainty about how to proceed, and I think that's again why Amplify is really useful. That if you don't know how your carbon emissions are being created, then that's a really difficult start, and that's net zero now is great. Mm-hmm. But further on from that, if you say identified that one of the biggest source of waste was how your furniture was delivered to your store, or whatever it might be, and it uses polystyrene, but you're not able to have that voice to stop the company that delivered it to you, then you might feel trapped. Where I think working together, there may be other people who say, oh, well, actually this company does it, or why don't we try and work with that company? And so I think a lot of it's about collaboration, that you can't just do this as individuals or individual businesses. It's got to be done in a wider basis. So it's, I think, time, because people have just got so much on, cost or nervousness about what the cost might be, but kind of a general sense of not knowing how. And I think particularly on that last one, I think that's where Amplify can be really helpful. And on the cost, I think we can provide a little bit of support to get things going, getting things started.
Yeah, on the costs, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Alex. You've been really, really helpful financially in supporting us to do what we've done so far. How do you foresee that support continuing in the future? Yeah,
so we're intent. So there's a very bit of brief context. The bids work for 5-year terms. They have election every 5 years, and then they're renewed. We've just gone through ours. We had a really good result early this year, and so we'll be definitely around for the next 4.5 years. I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to build on what we've done, and people will be even more happy, and we'll get a positive result, and we'll keep going. Most bids do continue on, and so, but there's no guarantee beyond the 5 years. But we've got within our plans for the next 5 years to keep giving large amounts to Amplify. The exact amount I'm not sure, but it'll be in similar levels to what we've done before, because this is amazing. A really important part of how we support those businesses.
And why do you think sustainability is important for a business? So you're representing your businesses. We understand the sort of wider needs for our planet, but why does a business need to concern itself with this? It's clearly important to you.
Yeah.
Why is it important to your members?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And so obviously you mentioned the kind of moral argument of why it's, as long as you believe in climate change, it's really important to kind of support the world and support particularly a lot of other people in the rest of the world where they're going to really suffer if climate change isn't addressed. But I think there's more down-to-earth reasons which are more directly impactful for our businesses. So there will be in the coming years more and more government intervention and legislation which will provide an impetus for people to be able to respond to. And I think getting on top of that early will make it easier for you to do it. That if there's a requirement to have all LED bulbs and you've still sticking to an old supply of this, then it's something, it's a big shift to move in all one go. So making that shift earlier, there's often government government grants and incentives to help with that. I think there's a second one around customer trends, that generally customers are moving in a direction of really wanting and making preferential purchasing decisions based on on the company's delivery around sustainability. And so I think it's in their interest financially. But I also mentioned earlier about cost savings. And if you do it in the right way, yes, there can be an expenditure to make it. But I remember reading about an example with Tate and Lyle where they had sugar waste going out into the river, and they managed to introduce a kind of way of harnessing that waste with sort of biobacteria, which then created methane, which then they could use to power the plant. And so it wasn't just the fact that they made an initiative that saved the money, that became more environmentally sustainable, but also then saved the money. And so I'm not saying everyone can do that sort of initiative, but there are opportunities to potentially make money. And so, yeah, I think it's really important. I think there's a lot of opportunities for businesses.
I think it's good to mention at that stage. I agree with the cost saving point's really important. It's not just about the sustainability or environmental benefit. There is a business rationale, and one of the things we're looking at in our sector groups at the moment with Dave Carter, he's talking to all our sector groups about some of the easy wins that create financial benefit as well as the environmental benefit. So the message we're trying to get out there and we're trying to really share is that it's good for business in so many ways, financially, for your employees, for your customers. And that's for us a
employee
big part.
morale I didn't mention, but that's
absolutely
that is, it's not just the customers, it's also your internal stakeholders, that is important to them, and working for a company which is acting in a way that you believe in, I think is empowering and has a positive impact on morale too.
Thank you. So I'm getting waved at by a production team, which
Yes.
I've always wanted to be able to say that. So last question from me. What do you hope for from Amplifi next year?
So I think to continue on, to grow the membership, to make sure that as we move into year 2, the net zero now really ramps it up and we have a lot of people delivering that. And then I think what would be exciting to do is kind of demonstrate the delivery and the success of that, to try and encourage Amplifi initiatives to spread further. Because I think, similarly as I mentioned earlier, that year 2 and year 3 can be more profound and more impactful immediately for new entrants here. It's also the learnings and both in terms of how we set the whole thing up. There was a lot of conversations a year ago about how even should Amplifi work. And I think now that groundwork has been done, I really hope that we can expand that to other towns and cities and possibly even internationally, that kind of concept of businesses sharing knowledge in an altruistic way, because it will benefit the wider area, and that's really valuable.
Thank you, Alex. It's been really good to talk to you. And I just want to say, on behalf of Amplifi, a huge thank you to you for your support, and to the bid for their very generous support of what we've been doing, without which we couldn't have done what we've done this year. So thank you very much.
Happy to. Thanks to be here.
Great. Thank you.